Today I'm going to be working on this 2000 Dodge Grand Caravan. It's a V6 3.3 liter engine. I'm going to be removing and installing a new water pump on this vehicle. First thing I'd recommend you do is go ahead and remove the negative terminal on your battery. This is a 10 millimeter fitting, so we'll go ahead and remove the negative off to get started. The next thing you'll need to do is remove the passenger front tire from the vehicle. Sometimes these lug nuts can be a little bit stubborn and hard to break or hard to loosen. When you put your lug nut wrench on them, if you have to stand on the end of the lug nut wrench to give yourself a little bit more leverage, that should help you break them. But you don't want to take them off completely. You just want to get them where they're loosened a little bit. Then go ahead and jack and support the vehicle, and then you can go ahead and continue to loosen and remove the lug nuts from the hub. What you're going to want to do is remove this plastic splash guard or shroud from the inner fender. It's got a couple of, I've already disconnected the screws, or removed the screws rather. It's got a couple of screw holes here, 3, and then there's one here, and then a couple of places where you insert these plastic tabs in. So remove all those, and then once you have that removed, I don't think you have to really remove the ones in the back. This is one piece of plastic that goes up in the top of the wheel well all the way to the back, but you ought to be able to finesse this around to the other side of your brake assembly and your spring and everything, and tuck it in back, because the next thing we're going to take off is this splash guard or plastic protector that is underneath your water pump here. You just have to get access to that. So I would just recommend you tuck it back and out the way so that you can access this next plastic piece. All right, so this plastic shield that's under the water pump, there were 2 little Phillips head screws that go through these little plastic tangs that allow this plastic shield to be mounted to the interior of the fender well. So once I removed those two little screws, I was able to drop that down. Probably won't move it completely because there's the water pump right there. And so the next thing I'm gonna have to do is go ahead and loosen the drive belt so that I can remove those 3 bolts, and then take the pulley off. So the next thing I did was loosen the drive or serpentine belt. There's not much clearance in here at all between your tensioner pulley and your fender wall there. You can't even get a standard socket in there. I know they make tools for this application. The bolt on the tensioner pulley is a 15 millimeter bolt. What I came up with was, for lack of having something else, I'd used a 15 millimeter open end wrench, and then I just took a jack handle that I had lying around as a cheater bar here and put it on there, and was able to loosen the drive belt that way. So hopefully you have a tool specifically for removing drive belts, but if you don't, open end wrench with a cheater bar will get it done. All right, so I've got the 3 water pump pulley bolts loosened. In order to do that, to give myself a little torque and prevent the pulley from spinning, I took a large Phillips head screwdriver, and I went through there are 3 holes in the pulley. I went through one of the holes, and then I wedged the screwdriver in there on a ledge that's behind the pulley, and then up against the fender well here. So that gave me the ability to put my socket wrench and break all 3 of those bolts without the pulley spinning on me. So you can use a large Phillips head or whatever you have to put through one of those holes to prevent that pulley from spinning, so that you can remove the pulley. Make sure that when you're removing these bolts, you've got your socket wrench set to loosen them, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. So you want to go to the left on these bolts. Otherwise, you're going to be tightening them up. All right, so here's the pulley removed from the vehicle. The bolts are 13 millimeter bolts, 3 13 millimeter bolts. I failed to mention that earlier. All right, so here's a shot of the water pump. once I have the pulley removed, you can see where the 3 bolt holes are, where the pulley bolted on there. And you can also see that this pump had failed. Up inside here you have a weep hole, and when these pumps fail, you can see it's weeping water and antifreeze there. So that's how you know that there's a failure in these. But I'm going to go ahead and pull all the bolts here and pull the water pump now from the vehicle, and we'll check things out further. Be prepared when you begin to remove the water pump bolts and break that seal, that you're going to start leaking water and antifreeze. So I've got a little pan down here catching everything. It's probably already drained off, I don't know, I'd say 1.5 gallons. The bolts are 10mm bolts, so I'm gonna go ahead and get another pan under there and finish draining everything. This is one of the lower points in the system, so there's going to be quite a bit of antifreeze and water that comes out here. But catch and reuse what you can, as long as it looks fairly clean. If it looks like it's contaminated, then go get you some fresh antifreeze, fresh water. Yeah, once I dump this first pan, I'm gonna put it back onto here and catch the remaining antifreeze and then remove the water. Okay, so here's the water pump after I've removed it from the vehicle. The orientation you see here is the same as it is when it's attached to the vehicle. I'm gonna flip it up a little bit to show you this weep hole again. So I had a considerable amount of antifreeze and water that was leaking out of there. These are the 10mm bolts that I had to remove from all 5 slots there. On the back of this, you'll see the gasket was pretty much done. I mean, it doesn't have any life in it whatsoever. This particular water pump I put on in 2011. I think I paid around $17 for it back then. Had a 2-year warranty on it, so I've definitely gotten my money out of this one. The new water pump, I bought at O'Reilly Auto, $46 for a lifetime warranty on that. Now, I mentioned earlier that you know, if your antifreeze looks clean, you could go ahead and reuse it, but you want to look at all the literature that comes with your particular pump, and if it's gonna void your warranty somehow, then make sure you use fresh antifreeze and water. It's entirely up to you. Some of these pumps are sold with a 1-year warranty, some lifetime warranty, so entirely up to you. Antifreeze is expensive, so you've got to make that decision whether or not you want to go run uptown or use some new antifreeze, or if you want to just go back with your old stuff, provided that it doesn't look too contaminated. All right, here's the water pump housing. With the water pump removed, you can see I need to clean up that mating surface a little bit. Probably just use a paint scraper with a little light grade sandpaper to get that cleaned up. You just want to make sure that you don't gouge your mating surface before you install your new water pump. All right, so this is how much antifreeze I captured from removing the water pump. I put the majority of it in this gallon jug here, and I'm going to go ahead and transfer about this remaining .5 gallon from this pan here to another jug. You don't want to leave this thing out, because if animals get into it, it's lethal to a lot of different pets. So want to make sure that we've got that contained. All right, so I went ahead and cleaned up the mating surface, used a paint scraper along with some 320 grit sandpaper. It turned out okay. I do have some pitting here on that mating surface, but I think once I put in the new water pump with the new O-ring, everything will seal up fine, and if it doesn't, I can come back with a little gasket. This is the new pump I purchased. It came along with a technical service bulletin that says the OEM pump on the vehicle at the time of manufacture may not match the replacement pump enclosed. The enclosed pump has been modified from the previous design. It featured a weep hole. The weep hole allowed coolant to escape during the normal wetting process and discolored the housing. Often, this was misdiagnosed as a leak and resulted in unnecessary pump replacement. The new design, Figure 2, includes a weep well to catch coolant that escapes during the wetting process. OE manufacturers have since adopted this new provision to their pump design. So, just when you get your pump, just take a look and you'll see that they have modified the design there, and they've got the figures, figure 1 and 2, so you can see the new design compared to the old. So here's the reverse side of the pump with the new O-ring. So with this new pump, you can see that the O-ring just sort of sits in that groove, so to ensure I don't have any movement of that O-ring when I'm trying to mount this back on the vehicle into the housing, and that the lip here and the O-ring fit nicely against the housing mating surface, I'm just going to take a couple of fingers and just set it in like that into the housing to make sure that I don't have any movement of this O-ring, and I get a good seal there. And I'll have a couple of bolts, 10mm bolts there ready to go, so that I can sput a couple in there, probably at the top and bottom, to make sure that I don't have any movement of this O-ring and have good seal while I'm mounting everything back on the vehicle. All right, so I got all the bolts fed back in. Everything's just hand tight now. I did them in sort of an alternating fashion, just like one at the bottom, then the top, then another at the bottom, then one on one side, one on the other. You just want to make sure when you put these bolts back in that they thread in nicely. You don't want to cross thread any of your thread holes there and then have to retap something. So just take your time and make sure they go in there smoothly. And so now I'm going to just tighten them up, alternating across one bolt from the other until I get everything snugged up. All right, so now that we've got the water pump pulley back on, time to put the drive belt back on the vehicle. And that drive belt's going to go around at the bottom of your crankshaft pulley down there, and then on top of the water pump pulley and around the air conditioning compressor pulley here. And then you've got your idler and your tensioner pulley. And then you've got the alternator pulley up top and the power steering pulley in the very back, and it's going to go around the back part of that power steering pulley in the back, and then around the alternator pulley up top. It was extremely simple to use that 15mm open end wrench along with my cheater bar to put this belt back on. You just want to make sure that the ribs are lined correctly with the notches and the pulley. So that worked out nicely. A little more information about how the drive belt goes around all the pulleys. I just wanted to provide a shot of this little diagram here that's on the rail in front. Just shows you the orientation of everything. All right, so I put the battery cable back on the vehicle, the negative back on, and cranked the vehicle and let it run for a little bit, and checked for leaks at the bottom of the water pump and around the water pump, and everything looked good. So that seal seated nicely. There are some reviews or some articles online that say some people do have some difficulty getting that seal in the right position, and if it's not in the right position, that you'll have some leaks. You can use a couple of dabs of gasket maker there just to make sure that that seal doesn't move out of position. But for my job, everything sealed up fine, and probably ran it for about 10 minutes here in the driveway, and I didn't have. It's starting to get a little bit of rain here, but now I'm just going to go ahead and put the plastic shroud underneath the water pump back on with the 2 Phillips head screws, and then go ahead and put the wheel well plastic shroud back in and secure it, and put the tire back on, tighten up the lug nuts, and lower the vehicle, and we'll be I'm going to tighten them up and then lower the vehicle, finish tightening them, and then we'll be good to go. Appreciate y'all watching. Have a good day.